What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house. It's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building.
I'm joined today with Leah Fox. How are you doing today, Leah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic, especially because I've got my very favorite audience member here today. And why is my favorite audience member here today? It's because this is a Chance Encounter where I interview commercial real estate syndicators, buyers, sellers, investors, operators, all that sort of stuff. And why do I do that? Well, part of it is for compliance. See, when you are in this business, you need to meet as many people as you can. And what you're finding out is, first of all, is there any overlap in your business? And you also need to document your relationships in case you have any private deals. So that's why I'm asking everything I need to know in order to figure out if my guest fits in my business or not. But before I get too excited about that, Leah, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit before we get started?
My name is Leah Fox, and I'm from Georgia. And I've been on my real estate investing journey for about 2 years, just educating myself, and got my first single family property that I'm working on, and I'm excited to learn as much as possible.
All right, awesome. So the first thing that I want to do though is I want to say, but wait, check your eight. I don't know, Lee, if you can see, if you look like kind of under your camera, maybe you can see the audience if they've got the red subscribe button or the gray subscribe button, because it's really important that they have that. No, I'm just kidding. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so the 5 distinct motivations. The first thing I need to know about anybody who I might work with is, why are you doing this? And I found that commercial syndicators have 5 distinct motivations, and knowing which one it is really helps me put it all together in my head. So the first reason why some people make their next commercial acquisition is because they're preserving their purchasing power. And what they're really up to, what that means is they've got a big enough portfolio and a sufficient enough cash flow that comes from owning that portfolio that the only reason why they're going to make a new acquisition is to stave off inflation, basically preserve the purchasing power of that cash and their assets as a whole. And so that's what they're up to. But that's not me. That's not what I'm up to. What I'm up to, because I got a background in technology, specifically, I worked for a CRM company, and then I opened up my own CRM agency in 2011 based off of that. And the problem, though, of being in tech and getting that wonderful high salary, high wages that people think is enviable, the problem with that is you're paying more in tax than anybody else. So the reason why I'm in commercial real estate is because I figured, well, how do I pivot so I'm getting rewarded with deployed capital rather than cash? Okay, so that's really what I'm up to right here. That's not for everybody, especially a lot of beginners. What they're up to is they want to take control of their schedule. They want to fast track their retirement, or at least they want to work fewer months per year or fewer weeks per month or something like that. And that's what they're up to. And that's not really so much me. However, I do think having some real estate exposure is essential if you're ever going to be able to leave the door open for retirement. But some people, they're not looking to slow down. They're looking to speed up. They're so ambitious, they want to buy their entire hometown. They're after that generational wealth to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. And that's why they're picking up these properties. So they're great because they're going to be hustling into their 90s, just like my last group. And that last group, what they are all about is they've picked a sector of society, or maybe it's the environment or animals or something, but they realize that you have to have a substantial financial backing if you're going to make a real impact on a group or a society. So Leah, of those 5 different motivations, what pops out to you and describes you best? What combination of those?
Generational wealth and financial freedom,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to leave my W-2 and retire early.
All right, beautiful, good stuff. So my next question then, though, is, plenty of people online, they talk about the opportunities in different businesses, but you have to understand the risk involved as well. So I have this tolerance for risk assessment question, which isn't as serious as it sounds. Fill in this blank, please, Leah. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. What's too risky for you, Leah?
Cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't make any money for owning it, and unlike commercial real estate. So I always love that answer. So let's get on to the next part then, which is specifically about commercial real estate. And the way that I go through this with every single guest on this show is I pull out, I got to change the name of it now, and I might stumble over it. I've been calling it the commercial roll die, but I think it's much better if it's a commercial competency cube. Isn't that cool? The dandoesdeals.com commercial competency cube. As a matter of fact, you can get your copy of these and print it out at dandoesdeals.com. It's completely free, and I don't even ask for your email address, which is a really, really bad idea from a marketing perspective, but I really want to make sure that you learn how to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate so you can tell other people, like your family and friends. And that's really what I think is the determinant in success when you first get involved in this. You have to be able to express this stuff clearly. So let's go through all 6 roles so you can understand how my guest fits into these deals. I'll start by talking about repositioners. A repositioner looks at a lot of different properties and does a bunch of paperwork. And they do one thing, they have a fancy word for it. They call it underwriting it. And that means they do the math. They figure out, is this property actually making the amount that they say it is? And that's not necessarily the case, right? Maybe the broker or the seller is trying to snow you a little bit. But I call these acquisitions people repositioners because they are thinking about how they change the property to find more upside. Now, there are 3 main tools that a repositioner has to find that upside. The first one is to find more advantageous lending from better financiers. Okay, so different banks, stuff like that. If you get a cheaper loan, then you've already got some upside. But let's assume that the repositioner has the same access as everybody else, more or less. So where they're really going to be looking for more upside, first of all, is they're going to be looking at operations and making them more efficient so fewer of these Benjamins end up going down those toilets. But there's more to operations than just unclogging toilets and collecting rent and taking out trash and all that kind of stuff. There's also a marketing component, which is one of my fortes, and that comes in to make sure that the vacancy rate stays low. But operations has a few different moves they can to improve the profitability of the property. But because commercial real estate is so competitive, that often won't be enough. So the repositioner will often have to get a contractor team to fix the place up, to make some renovations, to do a value add, as they describe it. And why are they doing that? Again, they're looking for upside. So if the units are nicer, then the next tenants will be happy to pay more in rent than the previous one. So that's why they fix them up. But that is a very dangerous proposition, getting these units all nice and spick and span and spending a bunch of money on them, if you are like me and from the internet. See, because you'd need a local. You need somebody nearby who can be there in an hour or so, because that's not going to be me. I'm going to be stuck at an airport in an hour if I have to get there. So that's why you need those locals to keep an eye on the contractor team, make sure that they're keeping the schedule and they're not cutting corners and whatnot. And same with the operations. So it's an accountability piece. So that's generally what people think as the ownership team. But when the repositioner has a property and turns around to the financier and says, hey, I got this property in mind. It's worth tens of millions of dollars. You don't happen to have, say, tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us, right? And the financier is going to have one question on their mind that hasn't been answered yet, which is, who's your KP? Who's the sponsor? And what that's all about is, if you want to be eligible for a commercial loan, then you have to have somebody in the fold who's already an owner of a similar asset. Okay, so if you're going to buy a 350 unit apartment complex with your friends or whatever, and you want to get a loan, you need somebody who already owns a 350 unit apartment complex, or the answer is going to be no. And on top of that, you need a certain amount of liquidity. And then also throughout the ownership team, you need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan. But if you've got all those pieces, you've got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Leah, as far as how you fit in, everybody has some repositioner roles because they have to figure out which deals they're going to be getting involved in, and they have some sort of like financier relationship. Financiers are people who only deal with paper and money, but every repositioner has to talk to financiers to make things happen. But where exactly are your strong suits? Like, are you being in Georgia? You know, being a local would be very strong for you as well, since it's so hot there. But why don't you describe yourself? What are you most likely to contribute to your next deal?
I think being a local person, especially if somebody has a deal in Georgia, I'm kind of in the middle Georgia area, so I'm 2 hours from the south border and about 3 hours from the top. So I could easily, travel somewhere, be a boots on the ground for an investor who needs pictures or an inspection, a basic inspection, because I'm not a licensed inspector or anything. But
Right.
definitely show up, be a face, communicate with people, help facilitate things.
Beautiful, beautiful. So my next question then is you've said some things about the geography, and so it has to do with a buy box. So when commercial investors and syndicators are talking to each other and saying, so what you're looking for, what's your buy box, what's your ideal property, they're asking for three main things. First one's geography. Which states, which counties, which neighborhoods. Okay, these are all things that will matter to different syndicators, and it'll be more important to others. So you got to know that geography. Second thing is going to be the size. Okay, so we're talking about multifamily here, which goes off a unit count. Okay, whereas like if you're talking about commercial, industrial, stuff like that, then you're talking square footage. Okay, but you're going to need to know the size, because the teams who take down 5, 10, 15 unit apartment complexes, they're not going to be the same as the ones who are taking down 500 unit apartment complexes. So we need to know that size. Now, the last thing that we definitely need to know is the class. And unfortunately, they use the same word for two different things. The first meaning of class has to do with the condition of the building. So is it old, or is it beat up, or is it, up to date, but kind of, no frills, or is it brand new and lavish with all the fancy amenities and all that kind of stuff? That's the first meaning of class. The second meaning of class has to do with the neighborhood that the property is located in. So what are the school districts like? What's the crime rate like? That's the second meaning. But both of those meanings of class use the same rating system, which is like as in grade school, where it's like A plus, A minus, B plus, C, D, and so on like that. So Leah, as far as properties where it's easier for you and your team to say yes to and more difficult to say no to, what you looking for?
Well, I would be looking for areas that are not high crime. I know there's quite a few areas in Georgia, like Macon, Savannah, Columbus, Albany. They can all have high crime areas. So that would definitely be something to take note of.
Yeah, it's great to have great locals such as yourself who actually know these areas, because like if you're in California or something, it's like, oh, Georgia, it's hot, right? It's a hot market. It's like, well, there's still places you don't really want to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with my regular job, we have to be aware of what venues are bad venues and things like that. So,
So I don't think it's a stretch to mention that it has to do with bodily injury, which means that so like that tells you it's like, okay, well, that's you really know the skeletons in the closet, as we'd say if we're going to use a normal saying. So yeah, that's a really awesome one. So you'd be looking at that, and then as far as the unit count goes, where are you comfortable with in Georgia? What kind of deals? Because like it seems like you're looking to partner up with some good sponsors who have deals already, and then piggyback as a local. But do you have some sort of unit counts in mind or anything like that in your buy box?
Not that I've established specifically. That's something that I'm working on. I don't want to decline a partnership, if it doesn't meet a specific requirement. So I'm still exploring what's going to be the best option for me. Probably, ballpark a couple of 100 units, nothing too big.
Yep. So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. So basically, you're looking at properties where you can have a third party operator. So that usually means that you need to be in the 100 to 200 range, something like that. That's cool. And I really appreciate your transparency. I'm sure the audience does as well, because everybody starts sometime, and you just knowing how it works. It's everybody's coming here from something else. So we got the buy box. That's cool. The next question, which I already kind of put in your words in your mouth a little bit. It sounds to me like you're best off finding more repositioners and sponsor KPs, because they're the ones who are going to have more deal flow, and you're going to be in an assisting role as a local and investor relations. Then that sounds right. Like who's the best person where you can disproportionately help, and you're looking for to build your commercial business. Did I get it right?
Yes. Just somebody who's looking for boots on the ground. I'm also happy to do some of the underwriting and due diligence portion of a deal, to look at local specs and run numbers and all of that.
Right, and you also have experience with that with your day job, your W-2,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Reading policy contracts. I work with lawyers and things like that. So I am not an attorney, but I work very closely with them. So I'm used to the language, what to look out for, risk management, what exposures we could potentially have, things like that.
I love it. I love it. And then my last question is the best way to reach you. I've got a distinct last name. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So LinkedIn's a great way to reach out to me. You and I met through some of our multifamily meetups that happen like pretty much every single day of the week. But what's the best way to reach out to you, Leah? Is there a website that's better, or is there a social media platform? How should people reach out?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn as well. It's Leah Fox, Leah, last name Fox, and just shoot me a message and I'll be happy to respond and help in any way that I can.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and you can say that you saw her on Chance Encounters, because that means a lot, right? But that reminds me that the last thing I want to mention is actually not for you, Leah. It's for you in the audience, which is if you are noticing searing pains in your eyeballs, perhaps migraine-like symptoms, it's probably because there's a big ugly red button under my hand that you should really get rid of. And all it takes is you just click on it. It's totally free. It doesn't ask for your email or anything. And it says subscribe on it. So you should hit that button, because then YouTube will start paying for these videos instead of me. But really the truth is, all it does is it means that my videos might show up on your list of suggestions, but you can go ahead and ignore those. That's perfectly fine. I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Leah, I appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me and we got to know each other a little bit better.
Of course, and thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me.
Hi.
Oh, hey, yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay, are you already logged into 506B me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506B me, everybody.